Welcome to my stylish blog app, a modern blogging platform that blends elegant design with full CRUD functionality. And it's also responsive in all devices. For instance, I can just minimize and you can see it's also very responsive. Great. We also can perform edit, deleting, and also creating a new blog. For instance, let us just create a new blog here. If you want to create a new blog, you can click this button or this button here on top. Let me just click it and we can create a new data or a new blog. You can do it by providing the title and the content. So I can just provide anything. This is just for testing. And one thing you notice that we have a beautiful font that is implemented throughout our project. Great. After providing all these details, you can click here, create blog. But let me just not provide the content and let us test without providing one value. If I try to create a new blog, we can see we have a verification that tells us we need to fill out this field. Great. Let us fill the fields. Beautiful. We just need to click here, create blog. And if done successfully, you can see we have a notification here, blog has been created successfully. This is beautiful. And when we move down, we can see we have the blog that has been created. You can also notice that the blogs have this beautiful card format that is responsive in all devices. We can also edit an individual blog. For instance, I can just click on this icon here, then click on edit. And one thing you notice is that it has fetched the individual title of a blog and the content. This is great. And I can just say here, testing Sona today, great, and then just click here, update blog. And if it has done successfully, we are seeing a notification blog updated successfully. This is beautiful. Another thing we can notice is that we can also delete a blog. We have a blog here. Let me just try and delete one of these blogs. We can pick either of them. For instance, let me just delete this one that we have created. For you to delete, you just need to click on this icon. When I click on it, you can see we have a beautiful pop-up. You can cancel. For instance, if I cancel, it will take us back to our page. But let me just delete it to show the delete functionality. So I just click here, confirm delete, and it should actually delete. You can see we have a notification there that the blog has been deleted successfully. This one is beautiful. One thing and another cool thing that I've implemented. So when I click on one of these cards here, it's going to take me to an individual note. Another cool thing I've added is dark and light mode. You can see we have a beautiful dark blue color. To move back inside the home page, you can just click here and you can see that even the home page, that the theme has been maintained. We're also going to learn about Prisma. For instance, when I click on Prisma Studio here, you can see that we have the blogs, and I'll also show you how to visualize your data inside a Prisma Studio. And you can actually edit inside Prisma Studio. For instance, let me just try and edit something here, and then we're going to go back inside our application and see whether it has actually changed it. For instance, let us edit this one, time to make great changes. Always believe, great. Let us move back and you can see it is actually here. Always believe, time to make any great changes. Let me just edit the content. I can click on this content, always believe, and say, believe, always believe in yourself. After making these changes, it's going to ask us whether we want to save these changes. So you can just press enter and then ensure that you click here, save one change. It's here. Believe, always believe in yourself. This is beautiful.
Get ready for an exciting hands-on journey into the world of Next.js, where you will craft a sleek, modern blog from scratch. This project isn't just about writing code. It's about mastering the core building blocks of web development. We first need to understand the essential features of a basic blog app. A blog app should at least be able to display blog posts. That means it has to show the title and content of each blog post. Second, a user should be able to view a blog post, And third, a user should be able to create a new blog post and perform other functions such as editing and basic routing, and also even deleting a blog post. We should also be able to store the blog post in a database like MongoDB, MySQL, or Postgres. But our choice today is going to be MySQL with Prisma. Great, let us dive into the next chapter, which is our first chapter. We need to create a new project with Next.js. First, we need to have our project folder. Navigate into your desktop, right click, and then new folder, and we can give it a beautiful name like blogging. Great. The next thing is just to drag and drop inside the Visual Studio. If you've done that successfully, you should see the name of your folder right here. Great. The next thing is just to install Next.js. Right click on these three dots here, then terminal, new terminal. We're going to use the latest version of Next.js. To create a new project, you can just type npx create next app at latest, then space and a dot. Nice. This dot ensures that the project will be created inside our folder. Ensure you select TypeScript, and we want to use the latest version of Next.js. That means we have to use the best features that come with it. Next, you want to ensure that you select the turbo pack. Great. And then you can leave the rest as default. If you see this message success, that means our project has been created successfully. Great. In Next.js, this is how folders are organized. We have the app folder, which will contain all the API routes and pages of our website. And we have the node modules, and the public folder will be used to store assets such as pictures that will be used publicly. But at the moment, I don't think we'll be using this. Great. And the rest is just configuration files. Let us move inside this app folder here, and inside page.tsx. We are using TypeScript. And first thing you see inside the page, we have a function called home, and it has a code that we did not write. This is just an example code. If you want to see this example code, you can just type inside the terminal npm run dev. But at the moment, I just want to clean up this so that we can have our own code. So you can come here inside our first div, we can collapse it and then delete everything. Then we need to write our own div. Great, and you can just say this is the home page. Great. After doing this, we can test our application by just typing here inside the terminal. Let me zoom this a bit. Great. You can just type npm run dev, then press enter. After doing that, you should see something like this. We have our URL http localhost 3000. What this means is our server is running on this port. Alternatively, you can see the network, whereby you can see the IP address of your computer. Great. We just need to navigate inside the first link, which is local. You can copy this link and then open inside your browser, and we can paste it. Before we test, I would like to do a further cleanup. As you can see, we have a layout file here. This layout file is used to define how the pages will look like. Great. Let us just move inside the layout.tsx. Inside the layout, we can see this. We have some fonts from Google Fonts, Next-font. So you can use a variety of fonts. Another thing you see is that we have a metadata here. We can change this metadata to reflect our application. Great. You can give it a title of your choice and a description of your choice. Great. And we can see we have a function root layout that takes in the children, and we are telling it that the children is of type React node. You do not need to cram this since it's provided by default. And then inside the body, we are applying these fonts, GistSun and GistMono. These two fonts here. But at the moment, I just want us to start from the bare minimum. I'm going to delete these two fonts here. And I'm also going to delete its import. So ensure you delete this. Great. And also delete this font here. And finally, you can delete the whole class name so that our body will not have any font. Perfect. One thing you can notice is that we have global.css imported here at the top. So what means is that global.css defines all the CSS that will be applied inside our project. So for instance, if we are having a children here, the children in this case is our page.tsx. So we can have a look at globals.css and you can see we are using Tailwind CSS. So we can actually test whether Tailwind CSS is working. We can go back inside our homepage and we can give this div a class name. This is just for testing purposes. Or we can just wrap this text inside a h1 tag. And then you can provide a class name. Great. You can say text 3XL. We want it to be large. And then we want it to be at the center. So you can just write text center. And then you can provide a color. You can say text is a green and a value of 500. Great. Even if you see these pop-ups here, that means Tailwind is working correctly. But let us just move inside the browser and see. When we open our browser, we have this. The text is actually at the center and the color is blue. That means our Tailwind CSS is working correctly. Great. The next thing we need to do, we are going to use a custom font so that our text will appear stylish. We can move back inside our VS Code, inside layout.tsx. I'm going to use a font known as Lobster. So we can import here at the top. You can just say import Lobster. And we're importing from Next.js. Great. Let us declare a variable known as Lobster. Ensure that it is in small letters. So you can say constant Lobster is equal to, and you want to equate it to this font here. So you can say Lobster like this, and then inside it you're going to pass objects. The first object is the subset. Great. And it's going to be an array, and inside it you can just pass Latin. Great. Then ensure that you put a comma. The second subset is weight. So you can do this, and then inside an array you can pass a value of 400. Perfect. And the last variable we can just say is font variable, or just variable. So it's variable, it's a key, and its value font Lobster. So it is dash dash font dash Lobster. Great. And we want to use this. So we have declared a variable Lobster that is going to use this font of Lobster. Great. And then we need to apply it inside our body, because I want everything inside our children, or everything up to every app to have this font. So what can we do? We just come here inside the body before passing in the children, and you can just have a class name. And it's going to be dynamic, so I'm going to use these curly braces, and then inside it you can have backticks, and then you can have a $sign and curly braces. Inside it you can just say Lobster dot class name. Congratulations, you have just applied your custom font. And this is how we use custom font in Next.js. We have different types of fonts. You can go inside the Google and just search for Next.js fonts, and you can select the one that you want. I think for this project I used Lobster. Great. And if we check our application, we should be able to see that the font has changed. Now let us check our application. Beautiful. We can see that we have a stylish font here. So this font, what happens is that it's going to be applied in all of our projects. This is the home page, and the layout determines whatever is going to be rendered, or all the children's, how the children's are going to be rendered. Great job. And we can move inside the next chapter. We have finished our first chapter, so I can take this. The next chapter is to set up Prisma. We'll be using Prisma for our database and Aiven. Great. Let us see how we can do that. Welcome to chapter 2. To install Prisma, it is recommended that you first shut down your application. Now we'll run this command npm install. You can use just install Prisma hyphen capital D. Great. Then you can just press enter. So you can use I or just full word install. It doesn't matter, it will still work. Congratulations. The next step is just to initialize Prisma. And you can do this by npx. Ensure that it is npx, not npm. npx Prisma init. Great. Then press enter. Perfect. You have done a good job. If you see this message, that means everything is good. So we are told that we can provide a database URL in the .env file. So what has that command done? It has created a .env file. So when you click .env, you can see great job. If you've done this, then you just need to, you will see that a file is created, Prisma. Inside the Prisma file, when you click here, Prisma, you can see we have a code that is generated for us. Ensure that you change your provider to MySQL. Another thing that we have is a .env file has been created, and inside it we can see we have a database URL. We're going to change this database URL with our own. Great job. And if you see this, that means it is a success. The next step, we need to move inside the Aiven website and get a URL for our database. Inside your browser, you can just search for Aiven. Great. And then you need to click here, get started for free. Or if you have an account, you can just click login. Great. After signing up or signing in, you will see something like this. So we ask, how do we plan to use Aiven? For now, you can just select personal. Great. And then you can provide your name, even the name of your first project on Aiven. And I'm going to change this to something like blog application. Ensure that your name does not have spaces. Great. And then you can select your country. And finally, you can just click done. Great job. After doing that, you'll see we need to create a service. Aiven has a lot of services. We just need to select MySQL. Since in this project we're using MySQL, ensure that you click MySQL and select the free plan. Great. You can see free plan is running on DigitalOcean. And then you can just leave it as it is. Finally, you can just create a service here. Click here, create service. You have done a good job, and this is the last step. We can see here that click here to reveal password. You can just click here and we have our password or a URL connection. You can just copy this, and this is what we need. Great. We need to move back and use this URL connection. Inside .env, you can just highlight this part, and we need to change this. So I'm going to paste this one here. Great. And you can see we have our provider is MySQL. Ensure that your provider is MySQL, and we also have this. Good job. Looking back at chapter 2, we have already installed Prisma. We have initialized it. We have also configured Aiven. The next step is just to define our schema for our database. Great. Let us move back in our application and define our Prisma. Let us define a model for our blog. So we can say model blog. Great. Ensure that blog starts with capital letters. Inside it, we need to define the properties of our blog. We have an ID, which is a string. And the ID is going to have a default, which is going to be a unique identification. Great. And then we need to pass at ID here. Just before the default, we need to pass at ID. At ID. Great. So we are having a unique ID that will be auto-generated. For instance, a blog can have an ID like this. And so the IDs are going to be unique. The next property is title, which is also a string. And we can also have a content, which is also a string. finally, we're going to have a timestamp, which is created at. So you can provide created at, whose value is going to be of date time. And to capture the exact time, we can use at default, and then inside it, you can just pass now. Great job. So at default now is going to capture the exact time. The next thing we have to provide is the name of the table. So this one is going to create a table of blog. So you can just use the at index, or at map, not index, at map. And the name of our table is going to be blogs. So inside the maps, you can just provide blogs. Ensure you have double quotation marks. Great. So we have our model, which is a blog. It's going to have a unique ID, title, content, and the timestamp. And the name of this table is going to be blogs. We're actually going to see this in our Prisma Studio. Great job. If you do not see these beautiful colors here, you can install an extension. Just move here inside extensions, then search for Prisma. Ensure you install the first one here. It's going to provide beautiful colors to distinguish this. Great. The next step, we need to define a file that will be used to connect to Prisma. So we can do this. You can just move here below here. We want to create a file inside the root of our directory. So you can click on new folder, and we're going to name the folder lib. Inside lib, we can create another file, and we can name it db.ts. Great. We need to import Prisma client, so you can just type import Prisma client. The next step is just to declare a variable known as global. So you can just come here and then declare, and then a variable called global. And inside it, we're going to define our Prisma. So you can say variable Prisma is equal to Prisma client or undefined. This. Great. Just need to change this equal sign to a colon sign like this. Great. So we have a variable Prisma, which is of type Prisma client or undefined. Great job. Next step, we need to connect to database. We need to declare a variable known as db. So you can say export constant db, export. Great. And then we can assign it to new Prisma client. This should work, but in production, this is not the best way, because every time we'll be querying db, it's going to create a new Prisma client. So the best way we can do is we have to check whether we have a Prisma client. If we do not have, then we can create a new Prisma client. So to check, you can just do this. You can say global this dot prisma. So we are checking if we have that. Then you can use, okay, we are checking we have a Prisma client, and if you do not have, then we are going to create a new one. Perfect. Another thing we can do, we can just check if we're in production mode. We can check if, and just say process.env. So process.env. We have a suggestion here which is correct, and I'm going to copy this. So we have if process.env is not equal to production, then we want global this.prisma to be equal to db. So you can say db here at the end. Great job. So we are checking if the .env is not equal to production. So you can actually create a variable node.env inside your .env, but it's not necessary. Great. The next step is just to generate our Prisma client. If you can just say npx prisma generate, then you can press enter. So Prisma has created the database. The next step, we can see we have an error here. So we need to install a type version that is compatible with Prisma. This should work if you're using, let's say, Next.js. So you can see by just pointing out npx Prisma generate, it has already installed Prisma client and the error has disappeared. Great. The next step we need to do is push this DB inside our schema. So how can we do that? So we can do this npx Prisma DB push. What does this do? It's actually going to ensure that this schema that you have created is going to be pushed inside the Aiven database. Great. Then you can just press enter. After typing this command npx Prisma db push, we can see that our database is now in sync with our Prisma schema. That means it is a success. Great. We have progressed and finished chapter 2. So we have initialized Prisma. We've also configured MySQL and we have created our schema. And finally, we have pushed our DB to Aiven. Great. Let us visualize our database in Prisma Studio. And to do that, you need to go back in your command. So we can just go back here inside the Visual Studio Code. We can open a new terminal and you can type npx Prisma Studio. And you can see in our browser that our Prisma Studio is loaded in localhost 555 and we have our models here. At the moment, we only have a blog. Great. That means this is a success. And you can see in our blog, we have an ID, a title, content, and the timestamp, just exactly as we have created. We'll use Prisma to visualize our database. Great job. And now we can move in the next chapter. In this chapter, we're going to create our API route. Great. One thing you have to ensure is that whenever you're making these commands for Prisma, ensure that your environment is closed or your local host 3000 is closed. Great. Now we can move forward to our APIs. In Next.js, APIs are created inside the app directory. You can move inside the app, right click, and you can create a new folder and you can just call it API. Great. We can also create another folder inside API and we can call it blogs. Great. And inside blogs, we can create a file that will be used for our API routes. And in Next.js, that file is named route. So we can say route.ts. Great job. You can collapse this and you can get started. We need to import next response. So you can just import next response from next/server. And another thing we need to do is to import DB. So we can import DB from lib folder. Great job. Inside this folder, we're going to have two functions. One is going to be a get function that will be used to get all the ports, and another function post, which will be used to create a new post or a new blog. Now that we have known we need only two functions inside this route, we need a post function to create a blog and a get function to get all the blogs. Great. We can start with a post function. So we can say export async function post. So it is asynchronous because it's going to take some time. Great. And then you need to pass in just the normal way we write a function. One thing you have to ensure is that this post is going to, all of it is going to be in capital letters. Great. And you can also have the same function. The next function is also going to have a similar structure. So you can just copy this, and just for the get function, we can copy that and change post to get. Ensure it is in capital letters. Inside the post function, we're going to receive a request and we're going to map it to request. Great. And then inside this function, we can declare two things. We know for us, in order to create a new blog, we need a title and content. So we can say constant title and content, and you're getting this from request.body. It's going to take some time, therefore you can just say await request.json. Great. So we are getting the title and the content from request.json. We have to check whether we have a title and content. We can enforce this in our front end, but I think the best way is just to enforce this inside our server. Great. So we can just do this. If not, can you use that command? If not, content, and also a pipe command, also title. Great. We are checking whether we have a content and a title, and if we do not have them, we just need to return. We cannot proceed further. Great. And you can see we have a suggestion here. I'm going to accept this, so we can just return a new next response with a bad request and status 400. Great. If we have a title and a content, that means we can proceed further. So we can declare a variable called blog. So you can say constant blog is equal to await db dot blog dot create. Great. And inside it, we need to pass some objects. So we can pass in the data. I can accept this. We're going to pass in the title and the content. So we are creating a new blog, and with the title and content that is provided inside the JSON. Great. And if that is successful, we can just return next response. So you can return next response with the blog. I'm going to accept this. Great. We're going to return a new response with the blog and a status of 200. Great. And you can format this. We just want the JSON. Do not want to convert it into a string. So you can say, or you can just leave it as it is. Great. Let us go back and test this. There are so many ways in which you can test our API. One way, we can use Thunder Client, or we can use Postman. We can also test this inside our browser. But before we test this post function, let us just write a simple code to get all the posts. So you can move just down here, export async function get, and inside it, we can declare a variable called blogs. So you can say constant blogs. So you can see we have suggestion here. So I'm just going to accept this suggestion. So we have await db.blog.findMany. Great. And we just want to return all the blogs. Great. And a status of 200. If you've done this, congratulations, you've just written 2 API routes, 1 for the post function and 2 for the getting all the blogs. Great. Let us test this. You can test it. You can just go inside here. But before you test, you have to ensure that your terminal is running. So you can just type npm run dev. Great. Our project is running on localhost 3000. So you can just copy this URL. And then you can install Thunder Client. You can come here and type Thunder Client. We'll use this to test our API routes. So you can just type Thunder Client. Make sure you install the first one. If it installed successfully, then you can just come here and you will see it here. So you can click it, and then we're going to create a new collection. So you can move here inside collections, and then on these 3 dots here, we can create a collection. So you can see I have a maximum of 3 collections. Therefore, I need to delete some. I need to delete some so that we can provide space. Great. Click on these 3 bars here, then click on new collections. And you can just type the name of the collections. So our collection is going to be called posts. Great. And it has been created successfully. You can click on these 3 dots here, and then we can create a new request. And the name of the request, we can just call it getting all posts. Let us try first to get all posts. Great. And then inside it, we can click on this request. Great. Inside this URL here, we have a field here that you can enter our URL. Just paste in the URL that you have. Let us understand how we are going to fetch the post. So you can see we have localhost 3000. This is the base URL. So when you're in the base URL, what do you need to do? You need to go inside the API folder. So you can add /API here. And then when you're in the API folder, you need to navigate inside another folder called blogs. Great. So we need to move inside another folder called blogs. And that is it. You do not need to go anywhere, because when you're in the blogs folder, you can access the routes. Great. And ensure that the method here is get. So we are expecting an empty string here. So you can just click send. Great. This is a success. We have an empty object here. We do not have any post at the moment, and the status is 200. Great job. The next thing we need to do, we have tested that the get function is working for API routes. Let us test the post function. A post method is used to actually create something. For instance, if you're creating a book, or you're creating something, or you're pushing in some data, you'll use a post request. And whenever you're getting something from the server, you use a get request. Let us change our method here to post. Great. Then we need to pass in inside the JSON. But for testing purposes, let me just send an empty JSON so that we can test whether this functionality is working. If I send something empty, we should see bad request and a status of 400. Or explicitly, instead of just bad request, you can say some fields are missing. Some fields are missing. Great. Then you can just Control S and you can go back inside the under client. Great. So let me send, ensure it's post. Let me send, and we should see that message. Beautiful. We are seeing some fields are missing because we have not provided anything in the JSON. It's working as expected. Great. Let us provide some values here. So you ensure you click here on body. Then inside it, we can provide the two values that our database expects. Great. What does it expect? It expects a title and a content. Great. So you can provide a value of title and a content. And this is the way you provide the value in JSON format. So you can provide title here and a value. We can say first blog, and content, we can say write something here. So we can write, this is my best YouTube tutorial on API routes. Great. We have provided title and content. We can just click send. This should create a new blog. Great. Let us see what happens. Great. Let me click this and we should see something. After refreshing, we can see that status is 200, which is great. And we have a unique ID that is generated. We have a title is first blog, and you also have the content and the timestamp. Ensure that you do not have a comma here. So if you put a comma here, it's not going to work. Great job. We have tested these API routes. One cool thing we can do, for instance, the get method, we can change this to get, and you can delete everything inside the body. We want to see this content, this first blog here. Great. Then click send. Perfect. We can see that we are returning an array here with only one blog. Great. You can also test this API inside your website, or rather inside your browser. You can just move inside your browser. Then you can paste in the URL. Perfect. And you can see this. So you can see this is the URL, localhost 3000 API blog. So in your browser, you can basically do a get request only, not even a post request, just a get. You can get some information, and you can see it has formatted as the blogs in a very nice way. Good job. I'll add at least another blog. So I'm going to change back to post. I'm going to provide some dummy data here. Perfect. I've added the second blog here, and I'm just going to do up. Ensure that the method is post, then you can just click send. Perfect. We can see that the status is 200, which means everything is good. We have a unique ID and our blog has been created. I'm going to create one more blog so that you can move inside our another section. Perfect. I've created another one, and great. We have at least 3 blogs. So when we move back inside our browser and we just run the same, so you can just refresh, we should see 3 blogs here. Perfect. Great. The next thing is to create a page that will use the post request, and also we'll create a home page that will use the get request. In the home page, you're going to display all the blogs in a card format. Great. Let's go back inside our application. Then we can just move inside the app. You can move inside page.tsx. Great. I'm going to remove this import image because we do not need it at the moment. So you can just push this up so that you can have the bare minimum. So we have this h1, which shows the title of our blog page. We're going to fetch all the blogs here. Before we create our home page, one thing we need to notice is that our Prisma is going to fetch all the nodes. So when you move back inside your browser and refresh, you should be able to see all the nodes. So I'm going to refresh. Ensure that it is localhost 555. Great. And we can see the nodes that we have created. We have an ID, a title, content, and the timestamp. Great. Let us move back. I'm going to give this div this class name, so a padding of 6. We're going to use Lucid React icons. Therefore, we can just move inside our terminal and install Lucid React. Inside the terminal, you can type npm install Lucid React and press enter. We're going to have 2 divs. So the first div is going to be for the header with the title and create button. So we can just wrap this h1 inside the div. So you can just do this div, then copy the whole of this h1. I want to copy this and paste it inside here. Great. The second div will be for the blog. Great. So we can just do a div here. Nice. Let us work on the first div, whereby we're going to display the title and also the create button, whereby we can provide a button that will create a new blog. Great. We're going to give this a class name. Display will be flex. Justify will be between. Items will be center. Align items will be center. And a margin bottom of 6. Great. After this h1 tag, we're going to have a link. If you can just import link from next navigation or next link. So you can just come here on top. You need to import link from next link. Great. Therefore, you can just call this link here just below the h1. So you can just move inside below the h1 and you can have the link, this link here. Great. Just do link. Perfect. Inside the link, you're going to give it a href. Href is the path. So we can just do this slash. You can do slash blogs slash new. Great. Slash blogs slash new. Perfect. So this is the path that will be used to create a new blog. Great. And inside it, we can just call a Lucid React icon. But let us just import it at the top. So we need to import a plus circle from Lucid React. So you can say import plus circle. Great. This one from Lucid React. And you can just call it inside the link. We call it as a component. So plus circle. And we can provide some styling to it. So we can give it a class name. And in Lucid React, the way you style this one as a text. For instance, I can just say test /. like green, and I'm going to give it a value, let's say 400. This is the way you style them. So Lucid React icons, you style them as text. And after the text, we can just put new blog. So after the icon, we can have this text, new blog. Great. Let us just see how it looks. Perfect. We can see we have new blog here, but I'm not impressed with the styling. So you can see we also have a plus icon from Lucid React. When I click the plus icon, the blog/new, we do not have this page yet. That's why we are getting 4 for error. We'll create it later. Great. Move back. So whenever anyone clicks on this new button here, it's going to take us to a new page. Let me give this link some class names. So you can just drag it here and type class name. It's going to be flex, item center. We want a BG of green 500. We want the text to be white. And padding X. So px3, padding in the X direction will be 3, and padding in the Y direction will be 2. We want it to be rounded. So you can just do rounded in medium devices. We want the text to be small, so you can just do this text -sm, and when we hover, we can just change the color. So you can do hover, then colon, and change the background. So here it is BG green 500. You can either reduce the color or increase the color. Great. So I don't know. Let us just change the color a bit. So I'm going to use BG 600. Let me darken it. Great. When we check our browser, we can see we have this button here, but it's not clear. I'm going to change this text to white. Perfect. We can just come here, and instead of green, we can just change to text white. So the icon is going to be white. Perfect. You can see the icon is white, and I also want the text to be white. So you can just go back and change. So here, text should be white. Perfect. So you ensure you have text white before padding in the X direction and padding in the Y direction. Perfect. And we should see new blog here. Great. Let us work in the second section where we're going to display the blog in a grid format. Great. We're going to give some class name to this div, so we can just say class name, and inside it we can say grid, and then grid columns. So you can just say grid columns. On medium devices, we want it to display at least 2 cards. So how do you do it? You do it like this: grid, then calls, then 2. On large devices, I want it to display at least 3 cards for the blogs. So the way you do it is you say LG, which is for large devices. We want grid - calls dash. You can see we have suggestion here. You can just select 3. You can play with these numbers to see how your blog is coming up. Great. We'll be fetching blogs from the database, so you can just come here on top, and we need to import db. So you can just do import db, great, from the lib folder, and then you can just come here before we declare our function. Just between the home and return function, we need to fetch all the blogs. So you can say constant blogs is equal to, you can say db dot blog dot find many. Perfect. This one is going to fetch all the blogs. Great. And whenever you're working with a database, ensure that your function is an asynchronous function. So you can just do this async. Perfect. And then constant blogs, before we make some query on the database, we just want to await. So you can do await. Perfect. Now to minimize errors in TypeScript, you can just add a question mark here because it is possible that we do not have a single block. Perfect. So you can just do a question mark here to make it optional. You can either have a blog or not. Perfect. Now that we have fetched our blogs, we can actually map them just inside here. So we can use curly braces and say blogs dot map. We're going to use a map function, and inside it we're going to map an individual blog, and we're going to use an arrow function. Perfect. Ensure that blog is inside a parenthesis. Great. What can we get from this blog? We know we have two things. We have a title and we have a content. Inside it, we can create a div. So ensure you have a div here. Whenever you're mapping, you should provide a key property. So you can just provide key, and inside it, you can just provide blog.id. Perfect. So each individual blog is going to have its key. So ensure you have this key to avoid errors. Perfect. We can also provide another property here for the class name. This one is we are going to style our CRUD. So we can say class name. We're going to have bg gradient. So you can say bg gradient to the right side. So bg gradient to right side. Perfect. The next thing we have to do is to provide the from color. So you can say from, you can even say blue 400. Perfect. So we're going to have a gradient color from this one, and then we have to provide the middle color. So you can say via purple or pink. Let us select purple, right? Purple 500. Perfect. So it is from blue 500 via purple 500. We can now have a to property, and then we can say to yellow 200. Let us just give it a value of yellow 200. We can check our application and see the way it looks. Let us finish styling it first before we check our application. So we can give a shadow LG. Perfect. And then we can do rounded exile. Want it to be rounded exile. Need a padding of 6. And border. And finally, border will be gray 200. Border gray 200. We can now check our application and let us see how it looks. We can see on large devices, we're going to display at least 3 blocks exactly as it looks. So at the moment, it's just empty. We have not yet rendered any item. So we have 1, 2, 3. And you can even minimize it and see that on small devices, we're going to have 2 on medium devices like tablets, and also on phones. Let's say if your phone is going to show only a single block. Great. Inside this link, inside this div, we're going to have a link. So you can just say link. We're using link from Next navigation, and inside it, we must provide a href property. Perfect. At the moment, I'll put a forward slash, but you can change later. Great. So we have this link, and inside it, we can just put a forward slash. We can give it a class name. So you can say class name block, and we want the text to be center. Inside this link, we can just render the title. We'll use a h2 tag. So h2. Inside it, we can have blog.title. Perfect. Like this, blog.title. We can check our application. Perfect. We can see we have second blog, third blog, and the first blog. At the moment, we're just rendering the title. We're also going to render the content just inside these cards. Perfect. For beauty purposes, I'm going to have an icon here, a Lucid React icon here just before the title. So we're going to have a file icon. So you can do file. So you can do a file text from Lucid React like this. Ensure that file text is imported. You can just check in application and we have file text here. Perfect. We can check our application and see. Perfect. You can see we have an icon here, a file text icon here. Let us give it some stylings. So inside the file text, you can just write class name and margin right will be 2. And then we need to provide class name for this h2. So you can say class name. Text will be to Excel. So you can just say to Excel. And then font is going to be semi-bold. You can choose bold, but at the moment, let us just have semi-bold. Text will be amber 900. You can give it a value like that. And on dark, or rather you can remove dark property. And then you can just say flex. Want the display to be flex and justify center. Items center also. So items dash center. And finally, a margin bottom of 3. Perfect. This is how it looks. We have at least the icon, so it is centered. But I don't think this text is clear. Maybe you can change the color a bit, the text for the title. You can change this from 900 to 700, or you can just leave it. Perfect. We can see when we hover around this blog, it has an ID, a title, content, and created art. That means it's possible to access everything from an individual blog. Perfect. Immediately after this link, we can just render a paragraph tag. So a native paragraph tag. So we can use P, and then inside the paragraph, we can render blog.content. Blog.content. Perfect. And we can actually check this. And when we check, we can see we have the content here. So each individual blog has a content. Great. Let us style this paragraph. I'm going to drop this here down so that this one is just for aesthetic purposes. Inside the p tag, you can give a class name. So you can just class name like that. Then one text to be gray. So you can say text gray 900. Just like, yes, text gray 900. We want the text to be centered. So you can do text centered. And then a margin bottom of 4. Perfect. After that, we're going to create another div. And we're going to give this div some properties. So you can just come inside the div and give a class name. So you can just say class name. Items will be flex, display will be flex, justify center. We want the items to be at the center. And finally, you're going to have a gap of 4 and a margin top of also 4. Inside this div, you're going to have 2 links. One will be used for editing and the second one will be used for deleting a blog. So you can just use link, and then press enter. And then inside the first link, we can give it a href. So inside, just do href. I'm going to give it just a random, something that is random. This is a random URL. We'll actually change this later. We'll change this one to a dynamic, but at the moment, we can just put something random here. For example, edit. And then we're going to give it a class name. So just drop inside the link, we can give it a class name. Display will be flex. Items will also be center. We want a BG of green 500. We also want the text to be white. Padding in the X direction will be 4, and padding also in the Y direction will be 4. And it to be rounded. So you can say rounded. On large devices, also want a hover of this value. So you can say BG grain, can reduce it slightly, like 300, like that. So BG grain 300. And inside it, we can just type with the word edit. So this link will take us to the edit page. Perfect. Before we have this text edit, we can actually use a Lucid React icon. So we are going to use a Lucid React icon. We can just say edit like this and then close like that and then edit. So to ensure that it is actually called, you can check on top of your file. So it's not, so you can just call it here. So we want to call so on top here, you can do edit with capital D. You want edit from Lucid React. You can just leave it like that. Finally, this edit icon, I'm going to give it a margin right of 2. You can check our application. Perfect. We have this edit icon from Lucid React. I'm going to copy this link so that we can use it for deleting purposes. So you can Control C, and then inside here, we're just going to say delete. Perfect. And we want the color to be different. Instead of green, you can change it to red. And also at the end, change it to red. Perfect. And you're also going to change the icon from edit to trash. So you can say trash with capital letters. So we want this one. We have 2 icons. You can either use this one or this one here. So let me select the first one, the trash icon from Lucid React. All right, we can check our application. Nice, we have 2 icons, one for editing and the other one for deleting. Perfect. And we also have an icon, a button here for creating a new note. So we can create, we can delete, we can also edit. We also need to change this text here to delete. So in the second link, you're changing this one to delete so that it can make more sense. Perfect. And you can just check our application. Perfect. We have this delete icon here and the edit icon. You can play around with the colors so that you can use a color that you like or a color that you love. Let us proceed. I think we are done with this step. The next thing we need to do is actually to implement these pages. So whenever someone clicks on edit, it should take him to the edit page. And whenever you click delete, it should also do the same, take you to the delete page. Perfect. And also whenever someone clicks on new blog, it should take us to a new page for creating a new blog. And then minor correction, this one margin right to be 2, margin right of 2 should be inside a class name. So you can say do it like this so that it can become more clear. You should also see the hover effect. Whenever you hover around the delete or edit, you can see a slight in color change. The next step is just to implement this new blog page. We want when we click here, it should not give us a 404 error, but it should direct us to a creating blog page. Therefore, I want to create this page here, /blogs/new. Great. Navigate inside your app folder, you can right click and then new folder. We are creating a folder called blogs. Perfect. Inside the new folder, we can create another file or a new folder and you can name it new. Then inside it, we can create another file named page.tsx. Perfect. Inside it, you can just do rfce. Perfect. And then you can delete import from React. And you can call this one, inside it, you can just have a h1 that says this one is creating new blog page. Perfect. And you can test this out. So when I click here, new blog, we can see that we are directed to this page. Let me zoom it out a bit. we can see that we have this text, create new blog page. Perfect. That means we have created this page. Let us now go back and implement other functionalities. I want us to implement a notification, and we're going to use to actually implement using shardcn Sona. So you can search in your browser shardcn Sona, then click the first one. Then you can just have a preview. When you click here, we have a notification here. Event has been created. This is the kind of notification that I want. So what I can just do, and can check the code. But before we check the code, you can move below and you can see how to install this. We have this command here, npx shardcn at latest add Sona. But before we do this, we need to actually install shardcn in our project. To do it, it's very easy. You can just come here inside installation, ensure you're here. Then we are using Next.js, click Next.js, and we need to use this command. So you can copy this command and then paste inside your terminal. Perfect. Then you can just press enter. Perfect. We are seeing a success message. That means shardcn has been installed successfully. Now we can proceed with the installation using Sona. After installing shardcn, we need to copy this command. Ensure that npm is selected. We can just copy this command and paste inside our terminal. This will add Sona in our project. npx shardcn at latest add Sona. The next step is we need to add a toaster component inside our app layout.tsx. So how can we do it? We need to import toaster and then wrap our application using toaster. Or we can just call inside just below the children. Great. And this is what I'm just going to implement. So we can move back inside our layout.tsx. Go back inside this layout, click on it, and we need to import toaster. So you can import toaster from above here. So import toaster. Perfect. And we're importing it from Sona. Great. The next thing, just below these children, we can call the toaster component. Perfect. And we've just finished up initializing Sona. We can use it actually in our project. For instance, we can just go inside our blog.page here. And we can see its implementation back in our project. So when we look at the documentation, we can see the usage is pretty simple. You just import Sona and then you toast the message that you want. Perfect. And this is just what I want to do. So I'll go back inside my project. For testing purposes, let us just implement it here. So import toast from Sona, and then inside it here, I can just toast. So we can toast like this. So we can toast event has been created. Perfect. And we can test this actually in our browser. The best way to test Sona is actually when an event occurs. So we can do this. This is just for testing purposes. I can call a button here, and inside it, I can provide an on click. And then inside it, we can have an arrow function. So we can do this arrow function, and inside it, we can just call toast. Perfect. And then inside it, you can provide a string and say button has been clicked. Another thing you want to ensure is that this is going to be a client component. Whenever you're using any hook, for example, on click and any other hook, you have to use client. So you can just at the top, let us declare it is a client component. And inside the button, we can just say, click me. Perfect. And when we click this button here, we can see we have a notification at the bottom. You can see button has been clicked. So our toast notification is working correctly. That means it can be used anywhere in our application. Great. This was just for testing purposes. Therefore, I'm going to delete this button. And I'm also going to delete this use client part here. Perfect. But I'm not going to delete toast because we'll be using it. Creating a new blog will be a client component. Therefore, I'm just going to right here, use client. We are going to use React hook. And whenever you're using React hooks like useState ensure that your Next.js, the project, not the project, the actual file is a use client. Perfect. Let us declare some variables. We're going to have title. So you can say constant title and a function to set the title. So you can say set title. We're going to use state. Perfect. And the initial value is going to be an empty string. As you can see, ensure that use state is imported here above. We're going to do the same for the content. Perfect. We have content. Let us style this div. So you can, inside it, you can just have a class name. So you're going to have this class name. So you can say minimum height. Display will be flex. Items will be center. Justify content will be center. And we want a padding of 6. Perfect. I'm going to also have another div here. So you can create another div. And then I'm going to give it some styling. So you can just do class name w-full. Then we're going to have this width, which is going to be twice the size. So maximum w2 excel. Then we're going to have a backdrop blur on large devices. And also this style, BG opacity of at least 20%. Wanted it to be rounded, so you can just say rounded excel dash excel, and shadow will be 2 excel. Padding will be 8. We're going to have a BG of background, and we want text of foreground. Perfect. We'll also create another div inside. We can just do this, a nested div. I'm going to drag this h1 inside it, so you can cut and paste just inside this inner div. Perfect. And I'm going to change this to create a new blog. So create a new blog, not a new blog page. Perfect. Let us style this div here. So you can just do a class name. Display will be flex. Justify between and items center. We want a margin bottom of 8. Perfect. Next thing, we're going to have a form. So you can have a form. This is just a native HTML element, a native HTML form. And inside the form, we need to have an on submit. So you can just do this. Instead of action, you can have on submit. You can just do on submit. Perfect. And I'm going to name a function handle submit. I have not yet created this function, but you're going to create it with you. Perfect. Let us give it some class name. So you can just do class name, which is space dash y dash 6. Perfect. Now to proceed further, we need to create this function first. So where you create this function, let me just drag this down. Where you create this function is here. You can create the function just here above. Ensure it's here. So we're going to do this constant handle submit, and it's going to be an arrow function. You can just do this. Perfect. So the error has disappeared. We have a handle submit here. This function is going to be asynchronous handle submit, so you can just do this async, and inside you're going to receive an input which is type of React form event. So you can just do React dot form event. Perfect. So we are receiving an input field, and it's of type React form event. So if you're working with TypeScript, you must provide the types But in Next.js, you don't have to do this. Perfect. Inside the form, we're going to have a div. So you can just do this div. We're going to have a label inside this div. So you can just use label. This is HTML label. We're going to give it a type, which is of title. So you can just provide the value for HTML. It's for title. The label is for the title. And you're also going to give it some class names. So you can just add here some class names. This is styling. I want the text to be small and the font to be medium. Margin bottom to be 2. You can do this. And display to be flex and items center. Inside the label, we're just going to render the title. So you can just do this title. But I want to use React, Lucid React icons. So what we can do, we're going to render an icon here. And the type of icon is actually the pen icon. So you can do this pen. We do not have this. So you can just need to import it. You can come here above. And then we need to import the pen from Lucid React. So you can just say pen with capital letters. And perfect, we have a pen from Lucid React. Let us give some styling to this icon. So you can just do this. Class name, margin right to be 2. And we want to provide the color. So you can just say text yellow. And you're going to give it a value 500. Perfect. For the label, we're going to have an input. So we can use the native HTML input. So you can just do input. It's a self-closing element. Perfect. Inside it, we can provide some attributes. We can provide the type, which is text. So you can just do type and text. Another attribute is the ID. So you can just do ID, which ensure the input is with small letters. Great. So we have a type of text, ID of text, and a value of title. You can also provide a placeholder. So you can just do this placeholder. And this time we can just say enter a blog title. Perfect. The next thing is we have to do is we have to provide an on change. You can see we have a suggestion here. I'm going to accept this. Perfect. We have an on change. We are getting the input and we're using this function set title. And we want to provide the title, the one that we've just set. So this function is going to set the title from an empty string here, set title to whatever the value that you have provided. Perfect. The next thing is just to provide some class names. We're going to style this and make it a bit beautiful. So we can just do w-full. We're also going to have a padding of 3. And we want rounded LG. So rounded -LG. And we want a focus of outline. So you can say focus outline none. Perfect. And also we want a focus of ring. So you can just do focus and ring. We'll select ring 2. You're just going to see this in a few. And also transition to be all. So transition all. Perfect. And we want it to use the background, the normal background color. Perfect. So we have this BG background. The background color is defined automatically inside global.css. So when you move inside global.css, you can just see the color. Great. So we have the color for the background definition here in globals.css. Background, perfect. Text can be white. And we're also going to have a border. Perfect. We've finished styling this. And finally, we can add an attribute of required. So it's a must that you provide these values before submitting. Just immediately after the closing of this div, we're going to have another div for the content. So you can just do div like this. Inside this div, you're going to have a label. The label will be for content. Perfect. And you can just write content here. Perfect. One thing I want to change is that for this input just here above, I don't want the text to be white. I can put a text of black. When you open our application, we have something like this. This is still unfinished. Let us proceed. But you can see we have a title here. Let's give some class name to this label. You can just do class name. Text will be small, so you can just say text SM. Perfect. Font will be medium. And a margin bottom of 2. Display will be flex and items center. Before this text content, we can have an icon here. Let us import another icon from Lucid React. So you can just come here and then you need to import align left. So you can just do this align with capital letters. Perfect. And you're importing align left from Lucid React. Then you can call this component here, this icon. So align left. And we can give it some styling. Margin right will be 2. And it's going to have a green color. So text green 600. Great. We can see that our blog application we have this icon which is green. Great. We're also going to have another text area below here that will be used to provide the content. Just below the label, I'm going to call text area. So I have a suggestion here. I'm going to accept this. So we can see the suggestion is we have the text area, the ID is content, the value will be content. We have a placeholder, which is write your blog content here. We also have an on change in which you're going to set the content. Perfect. We can also add another property defining the numbers of rows. For instance, we can have the rows to be 8. So we can just do this rows and a value of 8. That should be sufficient. And finally, a required property. We have our content here. So let us style it. So we can say class name. And it's going to have these properties. We want a full width and a padding of 3. We also want it to have a border, and rounded will be on large devices, so rounded LG. Rounded LG means it's going to have a bigger border radius. Great. You can hover if you're not sure of the style. For example, if you place border, you can see the properties. And padding, you can also see the CSS, the exact CSS property. And you can provide another property of focus, which is going to be outline none. Perfect. You can see that it has taken the whole width of the container. You can write our blog here, and you can also provide the title here above. Perfect. It's looking so beautiful. I also want this input field here to have a border and outline like this. So you can just go back inside your VS Code and we can add a border property. Ensure that you're within this input element, and then you can just do border like that. Perfect. And you can see we have the border outline here and it's looking good. Finally, you're going to have a button just before closing this form element. This button will be used to submit. So you can just do this button. Perfect. And the name of the button is going to be Create Blog. I want to use the ShardCN button. As you can see, the normal button starts with a small letter. Let us go back inside the documentation and see how to use a button. To use a button, we just need to install the button. So we can add the button via the command. You can copy this, and then inside your terminal, you can just paste it there. So npx shardcn at latest add button. Perfect. After adding the button, you can just come here, and then we need to import the button. So you can import, just import button. We have a suggestion here. This is the one that we want, from @/components UI button, and that should resolve this error. So you can Perfect. It has resolved this error. Buttons have variants, so we can just say the variant, and we want the variant to be outline. So you can just delete this, and inside curly braces you can just say outline. Perfect. And you can see the CSS has applied directly. Beautiful. Our button is looking good. Let us add some more properties to our button. So you can just say size, and the size is going to be small. So the size is not dynamic, so you can just say SM. Perfect. We're also going to provide some additional styling, so you can just do this class name, and we want the W to be full, so the full width of the container, and text to be at least larger, so to text to Excel, and a padding of 3. I need to have a bigger border radius, so rounded LG, and with the font to be semi-bold, and transition to be all. We're going to have a transform, and when we hover we want to increase the size of the button, so you can just do hover and then scale. So you can pick a value of 1 or 5. It's going to enlarge the button a bit. Perfect. And after all the changes, this is how our button looks like. So when we hover, you can see that the button is increasing a bit in size. This is looking beautiful. We have just finished creating our form. The next thing is to test its functionality. You can just come here. We declared a function called handle submit at the top here. So we have this function handle submit. So what we can do, we need to prevent the default behavior of forms. So we want to only submit when the button submit is clicked. Perfect. So you can just do e.prevent default. Another thing we can do is we can console the value. So you can say console.log form submitted. So you can just do form submit. So whenever we click the submit button, it should just tell us form has been submitted. We can test this in our browser. So in your browser, you can click on these 3 dots here. Then you can search, or you can just look on more tools, then developer tools. First, before trying, when I just try to click create blog, so you can see it's telling me that I need to fill out this form because I had put a property of required. Perfect. So you can just do this, a random value. And also let me just try and click here. You can see that it's also required. So we are validating the form on the client side. So let me just put a random value. When we have a value for the title and content, that means we can create a blog. Perfect. Then when we click here, we should see a console that form is submitted. Perfect. You can see that when we click here, we have this form is submitted. That means our form is working perfectly. Next thing, we need to declare a variable named response. So you can just say constant response. You can just say await fetch. This fetch requires some arguments. So what we need to do, the first argument can just put a hyphen like that, or a colon, not a colon. Yeah, this sign here. And then here we're going to provide the path. And the second thing we have to provide is an object. So we can provide an array of objects. One will be the method. You can see we have the method and the headers and the body. Perfect. I'm going to accept this because it is correct. Therefore, the method is post because we are creating a note, and the type is application JSON. And whatever we are passing in the body is the title and the content. Perfect. We just need to provide the URL here. So how do you know what URL you're supposed to provide here? You can just go inside your Thunder client, and then you can just look inside the request that we made. What we learn is that for a post request, we need to move inside /API/blogs. Perfect. This is the URL that we need. So what can we do? We can just go back inside the application, and then you can just do /API/blogs. You may be asking, why have I not included localhost 3000? When you put a / here, it is included by default. You don't have to repeat yourself every time. Perfect. We can just test this. But before we test, we have to first see whether the response is okay. Perfect. So we can just say if. So we have a suggestion here. But let me just type this. If response dot okay, then we can do something. We want to toast. So we can toast and call toast here. And inside it, we can provide a value. We can say success. Perfect. Success, new blog created successfully. So when we have this, another thing we want to do after creating this, successfully creating this blog, we want to redirect. And we also want to reset the field. So I'm going to accept this. So we can set again the title to be an empty string, and we can set the content to be an empty string. Perfect. We want to redirect. How can we do that? We have to import something. We have to import use router from Next navigation. So you can just say use router. Perfect. This one, use router from Next navigation. And then we need to declare a variable before using it. Where do we declare the variable? Just immediately before this declaration for title and content. So you can just say constant router. I have a suggestion here which is correct. So we have constant router is equals to use router. Perfect. Another thing, we just need to use it. So what we can just come here, if it is a success, you can just say router.push. And then we want to push inside the home page. So we want to move directly inside the home page. So you can say /blog. When I say /, it's going to take us to home. So I think taking us to home is the best option. So you can just do that. Finally, we can have an else condition here. So you can say if the response is not okay, then you can toast an error. So you can toast an error by saying error creating a blog. Perfect. We now need to test our application and see whether it's working correctly. I'm going to provide some values. In the title, I can just say post from client, and the content can be just some random text. So I'm going to provide some random text here, and then I'm going to click create blog. Perfect. We can see we have a success here. New blog has been created, and it has redirected us to our homepage. Perfect. But I think it has done it more than once. I've clicked the submit button more than once. So what has actually happened? You can just move back and see what you need to do. We can even test for another one. You can say this is the 50th post and some gibberish data maybe. Okay, and then you can click create. If it has done successfully, you should see this success new blog created. You don't have to do it multiple times. Perfect. We have implemented this button for creating a new blog. We also need to implement the button for editing and finally deleting a new blog. Another thing I've noticed that is not necessary, we do not need this statement here. We do not need to reset the title and the content. You can just leave it as that. Perfect, and this should work perfectly well. I have noticed that these blogs look cluttered. I'm going just to add a small space between these blogs so that it can look good. You can move back inside your application, and you need to move inside your home page. Our home page is our page.tsx, and inside this class name we can provide a gap of 2. So you can say gap-2. Perfect. And you can see that it has adjusted the gap. You can adjust the gap as you need. The next step is just to include the edit icon from Lucid React. So you can do this and say edit. Great. And if you've done it correctly, you should see that it is imported here at the top. Great. We have the book and the edit icon. Let us provide some stylings to this edit icon. The color will be green, so we can say text green 400, and you're also going to have a margin right of 2. Great. Let us also style this link here, this one here. We can provide also a class name. Display is going to be flex, then item center. Also going to provide a color, text blue 100, and provide a value of 100. Great. We're also going to have on hover, it's going to be underline. Great. Let us check in our browser. Let us provide this class name for this div. So you can just do a class name, and display is going to be flex, items center, and then justify center. Finally, we're going to have a margin top of 6. So empty top 6. Great. And we can have a look at how it looks like. Perfect. We can see that our text is aligned here at the center. The next thing, we're actually done with showing this blog page or the details of our blog. The next thing we're going to do is to implement this edit page. So when we click here, edit, at the moment it's going to throw an error because we do not have that page. So we are going to create a file called inside blogs named edit. Great. And the file is going to be dynamic. So we can move inside of our folder, inside our app folder, then blog, not API, but app. So we have blog, then we can provide a new folder, and we're going to call it edit, and another new dynamic folder, and we're going to name it ID. So we need to provide an ID for us to edit a page. Inside the ID, we can provide a new file or a new page called page.tsx. Just do page.tsx. Great. And then we can just do RFCE. Great. And we need to delete this import from React. Perfect. Now when we go back in our browser, we can just call it edit page, and we're not going to have a 404 error. Great. Perfect. You can see that right now we do not have a 404 error. I've just zoomed so that it can be more visible. When we move inside the edit page, we do not have an error. Great. Let us work with the edit page. We'll go back, and we're going to use params just like we did before, and also use effect. That means this page is going to be a client. So you need to declare it as client. You can just do that. Before we proceed, I wanted actually to include a toast component inside our edit page. All right, we need to move just inside the blog, not actually inside the edit page, but the blog's detail. Ensure that you're in your blogs, then ID. Just click on page.tsx. Instead of just throwing an error, I want us to toast. So we can toast here, toast from Sona. Great. You can just do this, and we need to provide the error. So you can say error fetching blogs. So we can just do that and ensure that it is toast.error. Great. And I'm going to delete this upper part so that we can only have an error. Great. So whenever the response is not okay, we're going to just toast that. Great. Let us proceed with our edit page. We're also going to use toast in this edit page. All right, I want to change this from page to edit page. You can do Control D, and it's going to highlight this, then Control D again, then Control D, so that it can highlight everything that is in page. So I'm going to call this edit page, edit blog page. Great. Now I've changed it to edit blog page. Need to move this one down a bit, and then we can proceed further. When you're working with a client file, you need to fetch params this way using a function called useParam, or a hook called useParam. So you can say useParams, and you're importing it from Next navigation. These params will be used to actually fetch the individual ID of a node. We need the ID so that we can edit the page. Great. Then we need to destructure the ID, so you can say constant ID is equals to params dot ID, and it's going to be as a string. Great. Finally, we are going to declare two variables called title and content, since we'll be editing the title here and also the content. We're going to use useState, so you can just do set title, and the initial value is going to be that of an empty string. So you can just use it and provide an empty string. Ensure that useState is imported here at the top. Great. We're also going to do the same for content. Great. We have a suggestion which is correct. We have content and a function to set the content. Great. Inside it, we're going to also have just immediately here use effect to fetch to actually fetch the blog data. So I'm going to do use effect, and this is how we declare use effect. Inside it, we're going to have an arrow function. We can do this. We have to check whether we have an ID, so we can just say if not ID, then we just need to return. There's no need of proceeding further because you can't fetch an individual node without its ID. Great. Next thing, we have to declare a function. I can just call it constant fetch blog, which is going to be an asynchronous function. So you can mark it as async, and then it's going to be an arrow function. We have a suggestion here. I'm going to accept this suggestion whereby we're getting the response and we're trying to fetch the data. And if the response is okay, we can set the title and content using it. Great. So I can accept this. If you want this suggestion from code auto completion, you can come here inside the extension and you can just install tab 9. Great. When you search for tab 9, you can install the first one here. Great job. The next step, we have to move. All right, we have the response and we are checking if the response is okay. We need to change the value of the title and also change the value of the content. Great. We can also do something else. We need to toast here. In case there's an error, we can just do this. We can toast.error. We're using toast from Sona. So toast.error, then you can just do this. We can say error fetching blog data. Great. At the end, we need to call this function here. So you can just come here immediately after closing this function fetch blog. You can see it's closing curly braces here. We need to call that function. So we're going to call fetch blog. Perfect. Another thing that we need to do is we need to provide a dependency here. So a use effect, we have to provide a dependency array. So you can just do comma inside here, and then you can leave it empty. But in this case, we need it to run every time we have an ID. So we don't leave it empty. Just provide an ID here. So every time we have an ID, it's going to try and fetch this function here. Great job. Let us proceed inside this div here. I'm going to delete. We're going to have the display is going to be flex, justify center, and we're also going to have a padding of 6. So you can just do P6. Great. We're also going to have another nested div inside. So you can just say div like this. Let us provide a maximum width, and also we want it to take the full width of the container. So you can say w full. We're going to have a linear background. So we can say bg gradient, and it's going to be towards the right side. The from color will be blue, so you can say from blue 400 via, so this is the middle color, purple 500, and the final color we're going to have this color, so you can say to pink 500. Great. We're also going to have a shadow. You can say shadow LG, and a border radius, a padding of 6, and a border color. So you can say border gray and a value of 200. Great. Inside this div, you're going to have a h1 tag. So you can just do a h1 here above h1, and then inside the h1 we can just have a text, and we're going to call it title. Or instead of title, we can just say edit block, since this is the edit page. Let us provide some class name to this h1 tag here. So inside the first inside the first element, or inside the first tag, we can have a class name. Font is going to be bold, or first we can just say we're going to have a text of 2XL, so a little bit larger of a text, and font, we want the font to be bold. Text is going to be white, so we can say text white, and it's also going to be at the center. Display will be flex. Align items will be center, so you can say items center, and also justify is going to be center. Finally, a margin bottom of 4. We're going to use an edit icon from Lucid React. We can include it here, so you can do edit, and then we need to actually include it at the top. So at the moment you're going to have an error, but let us just include it at the top. You can do this, import. We're importing the edit icon. You can see we have a suggestion here, so we have this edit, and you're importing from Lucid React. Great. Let us provide some styling to this edit icon. The text is going to be white, and you're also going to have a margin right. So text white and a margin right of 2. Great. We can have a look on how it looks. Great. We can see we have some spacing between this icon and the title. After that, we're going to have the form element. Instead of action, we're going to have an on submit. So you can just write on submit, and we're going to provide a function that will be called here. So at the moment, we can call a function called handle submit. Great. We do not have this function right now, but let us just create it to minimize the error. So you can come here on top. Oh, already we have a suggestion here that tells us we cannot find handle submit. So you can come here on top, and then we need to create that function. So you can say constant handle submit. It's going to be an arrow function. You can see we have a suggestion here, but I'm not going to accept this suggestion. So let me just say handle submit, and it's going to look like this. So we're going to have this and an arrow function inside. Great. And inside it, we can just console something. Great. We have an empty arrow function here that has no arguments at the moment, but let us just provide an argument. So we can just do this. It's going to receive an input, and it's going to be of type React form event. So you can just do react.form event. Great. Then inside it, we can just toast something like form submitted. So this is going to be the function that is called whenever we click submit button. So we can just do this, toast and form submitted. Great. Whenever the form will be submitted, we'll have this toast here. Great. Let us proceed. We have a function here, or a form, and it's calling the on submit. Let us first have a label inside this form. So we can just do a label. Inside it, we can just render a text title. Great. Let us style this label. So you can say class name. Display is going to be block. Text is going to be white, and font is going to be semi-bold. Text is going to be center. Let us create another div that we're going to use to render an input. So you can say div. Inside the div, we're going to have a file text icon. So you can come here on top. Then we need to import file text icon from Lucid React. Great. So we have file text icon, this one here. Great. That means we can use this icon. We just come here below, and then we need to call that icon. We can do file text icon. Perfect. Let us have a look on how it looks. Perfect. We see with that we have a file text icon here. Let us give it some stylings. We're just going to give it a margin right of 2. So mr-2. Great. Next, we're going to have an input from HTML. So you can just say input. The type of the input is going to be text. So you can provide the type and say text. We're also going to have a placeholder. So you can just say placeholder. And it's going to be title. And the value is also going to be title. So you can just pass in title. Great. Finally, we're going to have an onChange. So you can do this onChange. Inside the onChange, you're going to have an arrow function. So you can do this, and then you're going to call a function that sets the title here. This function here above. So we have this function set title. You're going to call it and pass in the value of the input. So you can say set title and we are setting the title with e.target.value. So e.target.value. Great. We also need to pass the input, which is the e here. Great. So we are passing the title and changing the title. We are passing the input and changing the title. Let us provide some stylings. So you can just come here and then can call class name. We are going to have a full width. So w-full. We're not going to have a border, so you can just say border none, and also outline none. Great. Let us provide the color of the text. You can say text gray 700. Let us have another label for the content. I'm going to copy this label and so that we can just edit it. Great. You just come below this div, and then I'm going to paste it here, and I'm going to change from content to title. Great. We need to create another div just below it for the text area. So you can just do a div like this, and then we need to style this div. You can come inside it and then you can provide a class name. Background is going to be white, so bg white. We're also going to have a border radius, so we can say border lg, not border but rounded lg. And finally a shadow, so you can just do a shadow md. Let us also give it a padding, so you can just say a padding of 2. Great. Inside it, let us just call the text area component or the text area element from the text area is going to have a placeholder, and the placeholder will be for content. It's also going to have a value, and the value will also be for content. So you can just say content. Great. We're also going to have a function called onChange. So onChange. Inside the onChange, we're going to have an arrow function. We're going to pass in the input, and we're going to call the set content function. So set content. The set content function is above here. We had defined it, so we have the set content function, and you're going to set it with whatever is provided in the content. Great. Inside, you can just say e.target.value. Great. Finally, let us give it some stylings. W-full. Also, we're going to have a border of none. Outline is also going to be none, so you can just do an outline of none. Text will be color gray, so text gray and a value of 700. Height is going to be 32. Great. And we're also going to have a resize of none, so we don't want it to be resized. Great. We can have a look at our application. As you can see, we have this. We have a very beautiful content section for the content. Great. Finally, we're going to have a button for submitting. So you can just come here outside this text area, and we need to provide another div for the button. So you can just do a div like this, and inside it we're just going to render the button element. Great. And we can just say submit, or instead of submit we can just say update blog. Perfect. Great. Let us provide some styling to this button. The display will be flex and also justify center. We need to provide a type for the button, so you can just say the type is submit. One thing I want to change, I don't want to use the native HTML button. I want to use the CRUD button. So you can change this to capital B. Great. And then you need to import this button from CRUD UI. So you can just come here on top, and then you can just do import, and you're importing button, and then you can select this one here. Great. So you're importing button from components folder. Great. So if we have this button, we need to also provide some properties. So we can just provide size, and we can select a size of large, and also we are going to provide another property which is called the variant. And just do variant, and we want a variant of outline. So it's not dynamic, so we can just say outline. Great. Let us have a look. All right, this is how our button looks like. Let us provide some more stylings to it. So you can just come here inside here, and we need to provide some more stylings. Let us provide some styling. So we can just say class name. You can provide the color of the text, which is going to be white. You can also provide the border. The border is also going to be white. And then we need to provide a hover. So you can say a hover property. And when we hover, we want the BG to be white. Great. And also, we want the color of the text to change. So we can say hover again. And we want the text to be gray and a value of 800. Great. One more thing we want to do, we want to prevent the default behavior of forms. So you can just come here inside the onSubmit, and we just want to prevent e.prevent default. Great. This one will prevent the default form behavior. One thing I've noticed is that we have an input inside a button inside the content here. I want it to be below. So you can just come inside our folder, and then we can just cut this div here, and then we need to put it outside this div. So you can just do it so that it can become outside. We can also provide a margin top, let's say of 2. Great. And we need to change the background. We don't want a white text. So I can just say text to be gray, and I can provide a value of, let's say, gray 800, like that. So we have a button here of update. It's looking good. Let us make some changes further. Great. I also want to change something else. We can come here and just change from, when we hover, instead of changing the color of the text, we can just increase the size of the button. So you can just do a scale of a value of 105. Let us see how it looks. All right, when we hover around this button, you can see that the size is increasing. Great job. We also need to style this div. So we can come here, this div just for the input. Come here and then can provide a class name. So you can just do a class name like this. Display is going to be flex, item center, BG of white, font is going to be semi-bold. We do not have a font. Ensure that it is rounded, not rounder. Then we can check our application. Our application is looking good, and we can proceed. The last part is just to finish this handle submit function. I'm going to delete this, and we're going to have a try and catch block. So you can just do try. Great. We have a suggestion here, and I'm going to accept this. So I can just do this. The first thing we have to do, since we're using await, we need to ensure that our function is asynchronous. So you can just do async. ensure that you have this prevent default, this statement here. Great. Inside this try and catch block, we see that we have a response, and we're getting the response from /API /blogs and then the ID. And then the method is put. We're going to create this first before testing it. We need to actually create it, the API, so that we can test it. Great. And then we are checking whether the response is okay. Then we can toast blog is updated successfully. There's one thing with TypeScript. We have declared title and content here. We need to explicitly provide the type. So you can just come here inside the use state, and then we have to say that it is a string. You can just do a string, and then also do the same for this side here. Then we need to provide and say it is a string. By default, what it means is that TypeScript will default to a string instead of just an empty, something that is empty or undefined. Great. Let us move inside our /API. So we can just look here. Let me collapse this inside our API /API /blogs, and we need to provide an ID. So we have API, blogs, and then the ID. So I'm going to collapse this, and then here. Then the method that we are using is put, and we see that we do not have the method here. So we need to provide the method. We need to define that API route. So you can just copy the same format, or you can just do this, export async function, and this function is going to be put. Ensure that put is in capital letters. Great. We have already defined a put function here. Let us proceed further. We need something else. Inside these arguments, we need to map the request to request. So instead of using the whole request, we can use a shorthand for REQ. Great. There's also something else we need for us to make changes. I'm going to drop this down just for aesthetic purposes. Great. We also need the ID, and we can just copy the ID like this, or I'm going to accept this. So we are getting the ID from params, and we are saying that the ID is of type string, which is of type ID, which is a string. Great. The next thing is we have to find unique. Before we find the unique ID, we need to declare some variables. We know that this API route is going to actually update the title and also the content. So we need to provide the title and content, and we are getting it from request.json. Great. And we can even provide a function that checks whether we have a content or a title. If we do not have, we can just return. So you can say if not title or a content, we can return with this status of 404, and we say title and content are required. Finally, we need to find the individual blog, or we can even say constant updated blog. I'm having this suggestion, which is correct. So we have constant updated blog is equals to await db.blog.update. Great. Inside it, you're going to provide an object. So you can just collapse this down, and we have to update. As you can see, we are updating where the ID is the same as the ID that is given, and the data is title and content. I'm also going to accept this. Tab 9 is so useful. It saves us a lot of time. Great. So we are updating this. After updating, we have to check whether the update has taken place. So you can just move just below this and say if not. So if it is not updated, so you can just say if not updated blog. Then we can just return. We can return a next response.json, and you can just say blog not found or update failed, which is great. And we are returning a status of 404. Instead of 404, we can just do a 400 here. Great. And if we move to the next step, that means we have updated the blog, and we can just return next response.json, the updated blog. Great job. And it's as simple as that. Ensure that the method is put and the method is actually in capital letters, and you're just passing in the request and the params. There's another method I want us to define, and the method will be for deleting a blog. We actually, in the API or in the pages whereby we're going to edit a page, we just need this put API method. But let us just define a method for deleting a blog. This is very important because we'll use it later. So you can see we have a suggestion here. I'm going to accept this. We have a function to delete, and we are accepting the request and params as the ID. And also another thing, we have to actually find the blog that we are going to delete. So we can just say await. We can just do await blog dot await db dot blog dot delete. So these methods are provided by Prisma. So it's dot delete, and then inside it we're going to provide an object. I'm going to accept this. So we are deleting whereby we have a matching ID. Great. And after deleting, we can just return a next response. So we can return a response that the blog has been deleted successfully. And the delete method is as simple as this. But for editing page, let us use this put method. You need to navigate back. You can close the API folder. Inside the blogs folder, we need to move to the edit folder and page.tsx. Great. We can see, let us have a recap here. We are making a fetch request on the same API route that we have. It's dynamic. And we are passing the data for title and content. And that means if we are not able to get a successful response, we can just toss .error like this. Let us test our application. Before we test, I realized I have nothing here inside the catch block. So here inside handle submit, we need to toast an error here. So you can just say toast.error, and we want to give the error message. Great. We can just say error updating blog like that. Finally, ensure that you have the required property for the text area, and you also have the required property for the input. Great. Let us now check our application. Our application looks good, but one thing is that we wanted to populate the title and the content. That means the title and the content is not populated. Let us see what we can do. The way we are going to troubleshoot, we need to know in what format is this data. Is this data that we are getting? So we can just console.log. We can just do this console.log, and inside it we can just console the data. Great. Let us see the shape of this data so that we can know how to set the data, the title, and even the content. So the way we do it, these question marks ensure that title is already set. It must be set. So these double question marks ensure you have this. When we check in our developer console, we can see we have an object here, and we are actually receiving the data of an individual blog. But one thing you see is that we first have blog, and then we have the content, timestamp, ID, and title. So you can just go back inside your application, and then you can say data.blog.title and also data.blog.content. This will explain very well why we are having blog here at the middle. Let us test and see whether it's going to work out. Great. I'm going to close this. Perfect. And you can see that we have now fetched the individual title and the content of the blog. This looks good. It also shows that understanding the nature of the response is very important. Finally, instead of having clearing, or we can just move here inside the handle submit, and we can see something. Actually not handle submit, but here inside the use effect, we see something that we are setting here. Actually it is inside handle submit. We see this, that after getting a response, we update a blog and we want to set the title and content to an empty string. Instead of doing this, I want us to actually move inside the home page. So I'm going to do this. You can just say router.push. Inside here, you can just do this router.push. Inside it, we're going to have a /, but we do not have a router yet, so we have to declare this. Let us use router with small letters, and then let us define it above here. So you can just move above, and then just below here we can say constant router is equal to, then you can say use router. Use router is a hook. Great. And if you've done that correctly, then you should see that we have use router here on the top. And we're not getting this from next router. It is next navigation. So you can just change here at the top to next navigation. Great. So we want, when we update our blog, instead of just emptying the content and the title, we want to navigate to our homepage. So we can just toss this one, success blog has been created, and then we can just move inside our homepage. Let us test this in action. So I'm going to actually go back inside the homepage, and then we can see this. So we have this is not the homepage. All right, we have the homepage here. So let me just click on edit this one here. So just click edit here. All right, when we click edit, you can see that we have error fetching blog. What we need to do is just move inside our homepage. So you can just come back here, and we need to change the URL. So you can do this inside edit the homepage. Homepage is page.tsx. Ensure that you're clicking this. Then you can go inside the edit. It needs to be a dynamic href. So you can do this, and then inside it, just provide some backticks. And then you can say it is /API/blogs, and you're going to pass the ID. So you can use an and sign, then curly braces, and then you need to pass the ID. Actually, not an and sign, but a $sign. Ensure it's a $sign. Great. And when you see the color has changed, that means it's working correctly. And instead of just the ID, it is blog.id. So blog.id. Now, after making these changes, we need to move back inside our application and see whether it's working correctly. Okay, I think we have changed the wrong link. We have done it on the blog at the delete link. We're supposed to do it on this link for editing. So you can just copy this. I'm going to copy this, and then I need to actually ensure that it is on the link for editing. So we have this link here above. So I'm going to just paste it here. Great. And also we can do this. All right. What we can do is that we can notice that this path does not actually match the path that we have. We can see that we have /. Okay, let me just let us just say /API/blog, and then we have an ID. It's correct. All right. Great. One thing we need to ensure that it is /blog/edit and then the ID. Actually, the route that you are passing here is for a page. It's not for an API. When we go back, we can see inside our app folder, we have /blogs, and then we are moving inside the edit folder, and finally to the ID folder. Just the same as here. Blogs, edit, then this. All right, let us see it in action. We're in our homepage. Let us just click any blog. So I'm going to click this one. Perfect. And we can see that it has preloaded everything. All right. We can also test with a different blog. Let me just test this one. And you can see that it has preloaded everything. This is great. Let us try and actually edit something, because this one has some data which does not make sense. It was just for testing purposes. Let me just change it to something that makes sense. All right, perfect. We have this. This is post from subscriber, and this is a good one, and I'm going to stick around. Then you can just click update block. If you have an error, you're going to see it via a toast. Great. Perfect. You can see that we have success blog updated. That means that our blog has been updated, and it has actually taken us to our homepage. If you look at it well, we have the edit has been, the page has changed and the data has changed. That means we have actually implemented editing and it's working correctly. We're also going to implement, the next thing you're going to implement is this delete button. When I click delete now, it's actually going to give us a 404 error or something that does not make sense. Anyway, let us move back inside the application and then create an delete page. We're going to just do the same. You can move inside blog and then a new page. You can do a new folder and we can name it just delete. Great. And inside delete, we're going to have another folder which is going to be dynamic, and we're just going to pass the ID inside. And finally, inside the ID, we are also going to have a new file which is for the page of deleting. You can just do a page.tsx. Inside page.tsx, we can have an RFCE. Then we're going to delete import from React. Great. And I can just do this delete page. Great. Let us move back to homepage and also change the URL for deleting. So the homepage is here. I'm going to click it here. Nice. We have the delete here. Have the delete and the delete link here. So let us check whether it's working. So it's not an API. I'm going to change this. It's not an API. We have seen that it is /blogs /. This is just what you have created. We are going inside the blog, and we're also going inside the delete folder. So I'm going to also pass the delete folder here. This is the path, right? And after that, we're moving inside this dynamic folder, which is the ID, right? So let us see it in, let us click our home page and then see what happens. All right, let me just click any delete button. So I'm going to click, all right, just this one here. I'm going to click delete. Nice. And you can see it is taking us to the delete page. This is beautiful. That means we have set our path correctly. Great. Let us now go in and modify our delete page. So you can navigate inside the blogs, ID, then page.tsx. I'm going to change this one to delete page. So you can do Control D, then Control D again. Great. And you can just call it delete page. Perfect. This one is going to be a client component because we are going to use some React hooks. So you can just do use client. Beautiful. Another thing we're going to do is we're going to use params, and this is the way you actually fetch an ID or the params in a client component. So you can just do this constant params just the way we did, and we can say is equals to use params. Perfect. And if you've done it correctly, you should see use param has been imported automatically from Next navigation. And then we need to declare a variable called ID. So you can just say ID is equals to params.id and as property, and it is a string. Great. We're also going to use router for navigation. So you can say constant router is equals to use router. Great. We'll use router to actually take us to different pages. Perfect. We're going to use a very beautiful UI component for showing the delete action. We're going to use alert dialog from shared CN UI. So you can navigate inside your browser, and then you can just search for alert dialog shared CN. Great. Then you can click the first one. All right. After clicking, we can see we have an example here. When you click, this is what I want us to implement exactly as this. Great. And we can see how to install. So I'm using npm, so you can use the same. Then you can copy this command and then paste inside your terminal. All right, ensure that you have this command inside your terminal, npx shared cn at latest add alert dialog. Great. Let us see the next step. All right, we have the next step. After installing this, we actually need to import all of this. So you can just copy this and then paste inside our folder. So you can come here. I'm going to drop this down here, and then we need to import them here at the top. I can just do this. So we're importing alert dialog action, and all this. Great. Let us see the next step. The next step, which is pretty easy, we just need to put this inside our body. So I'm going to copy this and then put it inside our body. I'm going to actually paste it here inside this div, so you can just do this. Great. Great. The next thing is we have to provide an on click, so that when someone says he wants to delete, there's a function that is going to be executed. So you ensure you are here inside alert dialog action, then you can provide on click. And I'm going to say, I'll call a function called handle delete. So you can just say handle delete. We're also going to define this function right away. So we have this function. Let us write this function up. So ensure you are here above just the return function, then we can define that function. So constant handle delete. it's going to be an arrow function. So you can just do this, create an arrow function, and inside it, we have to do some things. We're actually going to delete. Ensure you spell constant well. So I think it's constant like that. Yes, great. Inside it, we can just console.log, can do something simple, or we can even do a toast.success, and we can just say deleted or blog deleted. All right, we need to import toast. So ensure that you import toast at the top. You can just come here and import toast from components UI. So you can do this toast from Sona. Great, we have imported toast from Sona. Perfect. Great, let us have a try and catch block. So you can just say try catch, and I'm going to put this toast here in just inside the try block. Great. We want to try and delete. So we have a suggestion here. I'm going to accept this. So we have await. At the moment, we have an error because this function must be async. Whenever you're using await, ensure that you declare your function as async. So you can just write here async. Great. And this should make the error disappear. Good job. We are making a fetch request inside this API, which is /API/blog/ the ID. So you can check it. We have this API here inside the API folder. So we have /API/blog and then the ID, which is correct. I would like to test the API, this API just separately inside the under client. It is advisable that you just test it first before you actually implement it. So I'm going to test a delete request. You can move inside Thunder client and then collections. You're going towards post collection. You can right click and then you're going to add a new request. So you can do a new request, then you can say call it delete post. Great. You're going to provide the URL here, which is going to be localhost 3000 /API/blogs. First, let us get all the blogs, then you can pick an ID, then test it for deleting. So you can just click send here. Good job. You can see that we have a status of 200. We are able to fetch all the blogs. Let me just pick one ID and then use it for testing purposes. So you can just pick one ID or a blog that we want to delete. Let me pick this ID. So I'm going to copy this ID. Control C. Then inside here, I'm going to pass it here on top. So I've added the ID here and I'm going to change the method to delete. Great. And then if I click this and it's able to delete, then we can see. So click send. Perfect. We have this message blog deleted successfully. That means our API route is working correctly. This API route here. So this delete API route is working correctly. Nice. Let us move back inside our delete page. So the page is inside the blogs. So you can just move inside delete, then page.tsx. Great. We have tested this API and it's working correctly. Great. All right. Inside the error, we can just toast something. So you can say toast.error. And then you can say error deleting a blog. Error deleting a blog. Great. Let us also make some changes here. We want to actually show this dialog once. What we can do to implement that, we need to declare a variable. So you can just come here and I'm going to declare a variable called isOpen and a function to set this variable. So you can use set isOpen. And the initial state is actually going to be false. So you can say use state, and then you can just pass in false. Ensure that use state is imported here above. Great. Just above this function handle delete, we're going to actually use effect to declare a function that will ensure that this dialog box only opens once. So you can use effect. Great. Inside it, we're going to have an arrow function. And inside it, we have to actually set the state of u is open. And we're also going to check whether we have an ID. If we do not have an ID, then we are going to return. So we can say this if, then into brackets, if not ID or is open. So you can type command is open. Then we can just return. So we can just do a return here. Otherwise, let us proceed. If we have an ID, we are going to set is open to true. So you can just do set is open, then you can pass in the state. Great. We are changing the set state of is open if you're having an ID. The last part is to add a dependency. When do we want use effect to run? You can just come here before closing these curly braces, and then you can add a dependency. We want it to run whenever we have an ID and also whenever the state of is open changes. So you can just do this. Great. Beautiful. We have managed the state of is open. This ensures that the component mounts only once using use effect. We need to use router here. Direct us after deleting a blog, we just want to move inside the home page. So what you can do after this toast.success, we can just do this. You can say router.push, and we are pushing just inside the home URL. So after deleting, we want to navigate back inside the home URL. Let us now edit this part, the last part. I'm going to remove this open here. You can just remove this. I'm going to provide some props to this alert dialog. The first prop is open, and you're providing it a state of the initial state of is open. So you can say is equal to, then is open. Great. You also need to provide another prop called on open change. So you can say on open change, and we want to call the function set is open. So you're going to call set is open. Great. We also need to actually change this description. This action cannot be undone. This will be deleted permanently. Delete your account. So it's not your account, it's actually your blog. So you can just change this one to blog and remove, okay, and remove your data. You can just say remove your blog data from our servers. Great. Finally, you want to ensure that we're importing use router not from next/router but next navigation. So you can just change this. Great. All right, let us test it in our application. I'm going just to click any of this, and when I click this, we can see we have, are you absolutely sure this action cannot be done? Great, just exactly as we want. And I can just click continue. Let me just click continue and see. Great, nothing is happening. All right. Oh, great. It has actually deleted and taken us back to our homepage. Nice. But there's also something else I want us to tackle. When I click, let's say delete, when I click cancel, nothing is happening. That means we have to provide an on click for this cancel. Let us just move back and provide an on click. You can come here inside on cancel here. You can provide a property like on click, and we're going to have an arrow function. We can do this, and we just want to navigate to our home page. So you can just say router.push, and then inside it you can provide a path which is our home page. Perfect. So whenever we click cancel, it should take us to our home page. We can actually test this. Just move inside here. All right, let me click this one here, delete, and when I click cancel, it should actually take us to our home page, and that is exactly what it has done. That means our delete is working correctly. I'm also going to delete one more, like this one here. Then I'm just going to click continue, and then you can see that we have this pop-up blog deleted successfully, and our home page has also removed it. That means it's working perfectly. All right, as you can see, we have an issue here. Let me just click the issue, and then we can see. All right, that means we forgot to put margin right 2 inside a class name. Great. Let us navigate back inside our homepage.tsx and ensure that this margin right 2 is inside a class name, since we are just styling it. So mr2. Great. And the error has disappeared. That means everything is looking good. There's something else I've noticed, and I don't think it's a good user experience. When I click delete here, you can see when I click cancel, it's like rendering twice. What is happening in the background is that the use effect is actually running twice. So we can just move inside our code and make some changes. So you can see use effect, we have provided two dependencies. Use effect is going to run when we have an ID and also when the state of is open changes. So we need to remove this is open here so that use effect can only run once when we have just an ID. Great. And I think let us just go back and test. This one should give us a smooth user experience. I'm going to click delete. Great. When I click delete and I just click cancel, it's not rendering twice. It goes directly to the home page. That is great. Finally, I think I should also add some CSS. We should have a red color for are you absolutely sure? So let me just give some CSS to this so that it can look something like a warning also. Great. You can just move back here and then we need to find this alert dialog title. We need to provide some styling, so we can just do class name and then text is going to be red, and you can just choose any value. So I'm going to choose 600, and then when we move back inside our application and then refresh, we can see that the text has changed. Are you absolutely sure? Great. Congratulations, we have successfully completed chapter 3. We have implemented get and also a post request for fetching a new blog. We have also implemented a route for creating a new blog. We have also submitted the form so that it can create a new blog. Great. We have also created a new blog detail API route. So we can take this, and we have also created a blog list page, which is the home page. Perfect. And also we have also done this step for creating a blog detail page. I can just tick this. And finally, we have created also a file for editing a blog page. We can do this. So let us move inside step 4. We have already done step 4, which is creating a home page, and we also styled it. It is now time to move into chapter 5 or step 5. So in chapter 5, we're going to add a navigation bar and also update our layout. Great. The navigation bar is going to be on top here, just on top before we render our home page. Let us create a file called navbar. Let us navigate inside our components folder. You can just find it here, and then you can right click, and then you can just create a new file, and I'm going to call navbar.tsx. Inside it, since it is just a React component, we can just do rfce. Great. And we are having navbar here. So you can delete import React from React. We're also going to implement light and dark mode. We can move directly into shadcn UI and see how we are going to implement light and dark mode. Great. You need to search light and dark mode inside your browser, then ensure that it is shadcn. We can click shadcn. We need to select our platform, which is Next.js. Great. And this is the process that we need to do. Step 1, we just need to install Next themes. So you can copy this and paste it inside our terminal. The next step, we need to create a theme provider.tsx, and we are creating it inside components folder. So I'm going to copy this, then move inside our folder, components folder, and create a theme provider.tsx. So you can move inside components, right click, then new file, and we are going to call it theme provider.tsx. Inside it, you need to actually copy this code that has been provided by shadcn UI. Great. So ensure you have this code. The last step, or step 3, we need to wrap our root layout with theme provider. Great. We can see that we have a sample code here. You can also see that the theme provider is wrapping our children. So let us navigate back inside our app layout.tsx. You can see it has specified it is app layout.tsx. So you can just move here inside our app, then layout.tsx. At the top, we need to import theme provider. So you can just click here and say import theme provider. This one here, this is the first step. The second step, we need to wrap our children. This is our children here with theme provider. So you can just come here and call theme provider as a component. Great. I'm going to accept this. And I'm also going to remove something else. Great. Okay. Let us just call theme provider. Let me accept this. So we have our theme provider here and we have our children. Let me delete this one here. Great. We have wrapped our children with theme provider. Theme provider has some props. Let us see what props we need to provide. We can see we have an attribute, which is of class and the default theme. So I can just copy this part for the props, and then I need to copy inside the props of the theme provider. Perfect. And we have actually finished setting up our theme provider. You can see it has 3 states like dark. We also have system and we have light mode. Great. Let us see how we're going to use this inside our navbar. We're going to move inside our navbar, inside our components folder, navbar.tsx here. Before we write anything to navbar, let us just have this text navbar here. We need to call it inside our layout.tsx. So you can just come here, layout.tsx. I think it's also good that we wrap our toaster inside our theme provider. Great. We need to call navbar just here before calling our children. So you can just do this navbar, this one here. Great. And we are calling our navbar component. That means navbar is going to come before the children. When we refresh our page, we can see something. We can see that we have our navbar is called here on top. Let me zoom it a bit so that you can see it. We have this navbar is rendered here on top. Also, another thing is that we are having an error, and I think we need to declare navbar as a client component. So you can just go back inside navbar.tsx here, and then on top we have to mark it as use client, then just save. All right, the error has disappeared, so we do not have any errors at the moment. Navbar is going to be a client component. Let us declare a variable called theme. So you can just do this constant theme and a function to actually set the theme. So you can just say set theme. We're going to actually use theme from next themes. So you can say use theme, this one here. Great. Since we are getting these functions from use theme, we actually need to destructure them. So we are not going to use square brackets, but curly braces. So ensure that it is curly braces here. And if you've done that correctly, you should also see use theme here on top. Great. Since we are talking about a navbar, I'm not going to use a div here. I'm going to use a nav element. Great. And I'm going to wrap everything inside the nav element. Let us give some styling to this nav. So you can, inside it, you can have a class name, and you're going to have a linear gradient. So class name bg is going to be gradient to the right, this one here. And we need to provide colors. So the from color is going to be blue. So blue 500. And then we need a via color. So we can do via, then can provide a color, via green, and then we can choose a value. So I'm going to select green 500, and finally we need to provide a color, the final color. So we can do this, and then we can just choose any color that we want. I want to pick this one here. Great. We're also going to have a padding of 4. So you can just p-4. Great. Inside the nav, you're going to have a div like this. Let us provide some styling with inside this div. So you can provide container, and also we need to provide the type of display. So we can just say mx auto. The display is going to be flex. Justify will be between, and then items center. Great. Inside this div, we're going to have a link from next link. So we need to import it. I'm going to import it here at the top. So we can just do this. import link from next link. Great. Let us use it here. So I'm going to have link, and we're going to call it my blog. So inside the link, you can just say my blog. Great. Inside the link, we need to provide a href property. So you can just say href. And at the moment, a / will suffice. Great. Let us provide some stylings. So we can just do class name. Text will be to Excel. So a little bigger text, and the font will be bold. And select bold. And also we're also going to have a tracking. So it's going to be wide. And when we hover, we need to have a change in text color. So you can do this hover text. It's going to be gray and a value, I think, of 300 or even 400. 400 should be nice. And finally, we're going to have a transition. Great. Let us open our website and see how it looks. And this is how it looks. I think it looks beautiful. We have my blog, and when you hover, there's a slight change in color. But I think when you hover, it looks so dim. So let me just move back and increase the color a bit from 400 to, let's say, 600. Great. I think it now looks good. There is only a small change in the color intensity. Let's create another div for navigation links. So you can just do this div, and we need to provide some stylings. So you can just come inside the div, and then we can do a class name. Display will be flex, and we're going to have a space -x6 like that for some space in the X direction. Inside it, we're going to have a link for creating a new blog. So you can just do link, and inside it, we need to have a href property. So href is the path, and you can set it to blogs /new. Let us provide some CSS to this. So you can just move below, and then inside it, you can have a class name, bg white. We want a background of white. We also want a text to be blue. So you can just do text blue, and a value of 600. I think 600 is good. We can change it later if we actually need to. And the padding in the X direction will be 4. And the padding in the Y direction will be 2. We also need to have a border radius around it. So you can just say rounded like this, LG. Great. If you're not sure about these stylings, you can just hover around it, and then you can see the exact CSS attribute. Great. And then this link is going to be for a new blog. So you can just say new blog. Let us add some styling. So you can just say this. On hover, we want it to change the color. So you can say BG gray and a value of 200. Great. And you can also add a transition at the end. So transition. Perfect. We can check our application. Great. We have this button here for new blog here. So you can see when you hover, there is a slight change and the text is blue. Perfect. After this link, let us include a button for changing the state or the theme. So we can just do this button, and I want to use shadcn button. I'm going to do this button that starts with a capital letter. So button, this one here. Great. And we can hover, we can see we have button from button. So button is within the same folder directory. Great. You can see we also have button here. It's within the same level. Great. This button is going to be used to set the theme. So we can actually just move this down a bit and provide an on click. Great. Inside this on click, we're going to have an arrow function. We can do this, and then we're going to call a function set theme, the one that we declared above. And we can, inside it, we're going to provide the themes that we want. So we can just say theme. Theme can be of different, we can have different themes such as light. So we can equate the first one to either light. We can do this light. Or rather, not equating, but we first check whether the theme is light. And if it is light, we are going to change it to dark. So you can do a question mark. So this is a condition we are putting here. So a question mark, then if it is not light, we can do dark. Otherwise, we need to actually leave it at system mode. So you need to add at the end system. So you can just do this, then system. Perfect. So simple. We are having a function here. We set the theme, but before we set the theme, we check if the theme is on light, we convert it to dark. Otherwise, we change it to system. Great. Then we have inside the button, we're also going to render based on conditions. As you can see, we have conditions here, light and dark. So we have to check whether the theme is in first dark mode. So you can do theme. Ensure that you have these 3 equal signs. We are checking whether it is in dark mode. So you can just do dark. Then a question mark at the end. So if it is in dark mode, we want to render a sun icon from Lucid React. So you can do this. I'm going to call sun. Anyway, we have an error now, but let me just import it here at the top. I'm going to import sun from Lucid React. Great, we have sun here. And I'm also going to need a moon icon. So let me just import it here at once. So you can come here, sun. We also need the moon icon from Lucid React. Great, let us first use this sun icon here. All right, let's proceed. So if the theme is dark mode, we want to render the sun icon. So you can do this, shift. All right, let us put this inside the bracket, and then you can do this. Inside this other bracket, we need to show this the moon icon. So you can just do this, the moon that we have just imported above, moon. Great, like this. So this is a condition. If the theme is dark, we render the sun icon, and otherwise we are going to render the moon icon. Great. Let us do some styling to this moon and sun icon. We want a yellow color for the sun, so you can just come here inside the sun icon, then going to give a class name, and text is going to be yellow and a value of 400. All right, great. Let us also provide some styling to this moon. Class name again, and we want text to be gray 700. So you can select gray and a value of this value 700 here. Great. Let us also add another property. So you can add a property of dark. So when it is in dark mode, we can change the color. So we want to actually reduce the size of the color or the intensity of the color. So you can say text gray and a value of 300. Great. I also misspelled rounded. This one should be rounded, not rounder. Great. You can play with this value of the text color and see what suits your application or what makes actually the application looks good. There's something else I also want to change. We have light, so we are checking whether it is light and we are turning it to dark. Otherwise, we want to turn it to light mode. So we can do this light mode here. Great. Let us have a look at our application. So our application looks good. We have the blog here, and we also have this new blog button here. Great. And we have this icon here for toggling either dark mode or light mode. Let me just click any page. So when I click here, you see we still have the nav bar here. So let me try and change. When I click here, you can see the background has changed to black, and when I click again, it's changing the color. Great. We have actually successfully implemented light and dark mode in our application. The question is, what if you don't want a black background color for when you toggle light and dark? For instance, when you toggle light, you can see light. Yes, light is good. But what if you want a dark blue color? You can actually go back inside your CSS here, and this is where you can define your custom color. So I can change this, just the first line. With the first line, if you have a value of, this is a HSL value, a value of 0.2 and a 0.1 and 270. When I save, we should see that it is, the background color has changed to dark blue. So we can just go back here, and you see it's dark blue. This one should be sufficient. So you can change the background color to any color by just manipulating this first HSL value. So you can change it to even yellow or something that makes sense to you, or it's something that becomes more beautiful to your app. Great. Decided to change mine to a purple background. You can play along with this value and then you can select the right value for your background color. So for my background color or the dark mode, it's going to be purple. Let us see it in action. For instance, we have here, this is light mode and dark mode. I think purple looks good even in other pages. Great. One thing you notice is that this background color, light or dark, is being preserved in all the states. For example, if I click a new blog here, we can see at the moment it's just dark mode. So you can see the text has changed, and you can see we have creating a new blog and everything related to this. Great. Also in other pages, for example, when editing a page, if I click, let's say, edit a page, we can see that the background color is preserved. One thing maybe I want to change is this. You can see this update blog. When you hover around it, it turns to white. So I'm going to change this so that we can just maintain this color. Great. This is just for aesthetic purposes. You don't have to change this. Inside this page, edit blog, I'm going to actually change this on hover. I'm going to delete this part. Great. Let us see the changes in action. All right, when you hover, let it just update. Great. When you hover, you can see that the text has changed and it's looking now good. Great. I also feel this color is kind of dark, update blog. So I'm going to change it just to white. I want, when we are in dark mode, I want this text color to be white. So for instance, you can see it's not visible. So you can just come here inside your edit blog and you can provide this property dark colon, and then you can just provide the color of the text. So you can say text white. Great. And when we go back inside our page, we can see that the color is white by default, but when you hover, the color changes. This is great, and I think it's looking beautiful. So maybe something else, you can change this later if you want. You can change the color of the background color, not from black to maybe something else that you want. But for me, it's okay, and I'm just going to leave it as it is. Also, the links here are working. For example, if I click my blog here, you can just click it and it should take us to our homepage. Everything is working smoothly. Another thing we can do, I'm not impressed by this button here. This button here. So for instance, when I click dark mode, you can see we have a darker shading here. You can leave it if you want, but for me, I'm not impressed. So I'm going to actually do something. Since we're using ShadCN button, I'm going to give a variant here. You can just say variant, and inside it, I'm going to give a variant of ghost. Great. When you're wondering where ghost is coming from, it's actually coming from button here. You can see we have some default variants. For example, ghost, we have this, and you can actually also change this if you want. Great. Let us see how it looks now. You can also see we just have this icon here, but when you hover, you can see that we have something here. So I don't want to have this at the moment. So I'm just going to change button.txx from this file. All right, let me just change some variables. So we are dealing with ghosts, and I want to delete this part of hover so that we can just remain with everything as it is. So you can delete this part for hovering, this one here. So we don't want anything to happen when you hover. So you can just delete this. Great. Let us see how it looks. So you can actually customize these variables here. It looks good. We only have an icon, but we do not have anything on the background. And I think this one looks beautiful. So you can change between dark and light mode.